It's 9 o'clock. We'll call to order the June 21st, or how about 22nd, 2017
We have
meeting.
a motion to come out of recess.
Oh,
Motion to come out of recess.
there's a second?
Second.
Motion to come out of recess by DeSanto, second by Buskerud. All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Call to order the June 22nd, 2017, 2018 budget hearings. Ms. Annette from the Treasurer's Office
Good
first.
morning. Good morning, Commissioners. Annette Brandt, Chief Deputy Treasurer for the Treasurer's Office. So in front of you, you have the estimated budget for 2018 or requested budget for 2018, and I am open for any questions.
Any questions from Ms. Annette, for Ms. Annette?
You'll notice from last year on the expenditures for postage, it was, well, budget is just a guessing game anyway, but with it being a new plate year, we weren't sure how that was going to affect the budget line. Very conservative in purchases and also revenue estimates to protect the county, but the postage was overestimated greatly, but we do have some thanks to give to your commission office with Holly and Andy did some searching for us to find some more conservative ways to send out those plates and the mail that we do on a daily basis. So we were able to give back almost $74,000 of that last year. Again, it was an estimate of what we thought was going to happen, and people chose to come in and have their plates handed to them instead of having them mailed, so.
I do have a question.
Yes.
Number of paid full-time employees, non-benefited, what's that? Some of our employees
It
don't-
is part-time. They can work up to a certain amount of hours in a revolving year, in a revolving calendar year.
Okay,
And so we keep that under the amount, so it doesn't include the sick leave and vacation hours.
and then to kind of follow up on that, yesterday, most of the departments that talked to us had their premiums for group insurance go down. I'm just wondering,
Their workman's comp, you mean?
didn't go, no, it was group insurance, wasn't it, Ron?
Group insurance.
Down quite a bit on a couple of departments. And they didn't lose any employees, so,
We did go ahead and we do ours based on the actual, and we always have. So the only thing, I mean, ours is right now at actual.
okay.
And we've never had a cushion on that before. I know in some years past, possibly some of the departments estimated it as full families. We've never done that.
That could be, I'll have to ask one of those departments. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Notice there's quite a decrease in revenues. Any explanation? Looks like it's just maybe a little in everything.
Again, those are estimates, and we don't have all we can base it on is the previous year and what's happening at the time that the budget numbers are being asked to be submitted. Most years, it is higher than what we actually put in there, but if we estimate it too high, then we're putting the county in a pinch, so.
So this year you estimated it lower, a lot
Annette, can
lower?
you tell them about the liens?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, the lien fees, you'll see a tremendous drop in that area. And we lost with that
There you go.
new law that came through, or the change in law for the title loan companies. So that's where you're seeing the big difference there. We no longer have the title loan companies. We were probably doing packets of liens on those. Those are $5 a piece, and we were probably doing, if I were to estimate, I would say probably 30 to 40 of those a day. were coming through. And those shops have pretty much closed up now. Those are not an option.
What, I guess I'm not familiar, probably should be. What law, what happened?
The title loan companies were charging in excess of 300% for short-term loans. They were no longer able to do that, and so with what they were able to do, a lot of them closed up shop and didn't.
You're talking,
Those-
okay, I was
The
thinking.
borrowing
Title
monies. to-
company.
And,
It was on
yeah, they
the-
were title loan.
Yeah,
The ballot to cap them at 36%.
those fast, quick loan
Bad at
things.
that, yeah.
Yep, I see a lot of them closing.
The banks have picked up a little bit on the loans, but those short-term loans, there's no way that the bank can, recover all of those that were happening. So,
Yeah, okay.
Nat, you brought up a good point with the postage. And since Holly, been working with Holly on that, has any representative from the post office come in and talked to us about their service? The reason why I ask is my brother's a postmaster now in Rapid, so I mean, he's been to the city, he's been to some others talking with some of the services they provide, and they can do,
Bulk mail
yeah,
discounts.
I mean,
well, there is
I just know that he's done that because he's told me, otherwise I wouldn't have thought the post office would have done it.
We haven't had an overall analysis. We did a few years ago when we were deciding whether we were gonna outsource all of our mail processing to Western Mailers. And it was cheaper for us to keep it here in-house. But we haven't done an overall in a while. Your brother actually called me here a while ago because we were having another addressing issue. But we didn't talk about
But-
a
and-
survey or a overall analysis, so I could certainly reach out and see if there's anything else we could be doing differently, but
Well, I might be just standing in the wind. I can call him and ask him and see what he does too. I mean,
we have a pretty good pre-sort rate with Western Mailers, and Andy's done a lot of research, and we switched to a regional rate box to send all of the vehicle titles up to Pier, which was saving quite a few dollars a day.
we
So
send that
we-
package every day, and it was like $7.95 to, now it's like $7.95. It used to be between $12 and $13, and that's a daily that's just one package that goes out of the treasurer's office for the daily workload that gets sent to the state. And it's my understanding that Andy also was working with Western mailers and getting discounts too for the volume that we're doing. I believe it's called regional, is that? And that's where the findings were, where we could switch different envelopes and, send it off, and it was a huge savings.
We have bulk permits with the post office now. We have one, I think, that goes through the auditor's office or the treasurer's office. Yeah, so.
Something to look into. Good point.
And again, revenue side of that too, it's just, the revenue side should always offset that, because if we're sending it out, we are able to recoup that in a handling and a postage fee that goes back into the revenue. But this year it was just an estimate of who was gonna wanna stand in line for that $5 plate or have it mailed out for the $5, and the taxpayers were standing in line for it, so. We had a little bit of leftover last year as well for an employee as well. The employees, we had FMLA issues that people needed leave that didn't have benefited time. So again, we were able to turn back a little over $100,000 for those issues that came up. Janet's always been very frugal with that, and it's not a spend it, use it or lose it type deal, and she'll more than likely be back here with that too, but you never know, so.
Thank you, Ms. Annette. Any
We
other
would really like you to consider the wage increases. It's a big deal in our office for the turnover and retention of employees. I know you're hearing that a lot from all of the departments, but we are a conservative office, but the workflow increases, the hours in the day remain the same. It's, new hires coming in can potentially be making the same amount of money for an 18-month employed, or excuse me, an 18-month trained employee. And that does kind of hit the morale a little bit coming in. So they're all told that as they're hired on, that it's a government agency and the raise is not given, but the fact is the workload is increasing and the day hours are not, so we'd sure appreciate you considering that as well.
I've got one other question on the.
Yes.
I'm new at this, so maybe this is always like this, but in 2016, we spent 108,745 county title fees are brought in, and then the title fees are way down in 2017, 20,400. Is that also having to do with the?
No, the county title fee again is all of these are just guesstimates. We have no idea how many people are gonna buy a new vehicle. If we estimate that high and you spend it, then we're in trouble. So what happened was a change in fees where it used to be a $5 title transfer fee, and that all went to the state. Now the state is had increased the county title fee to $10, and the county retains $5 of it. So you'll see that in 2017, we projected 20,000. Based on what we did in 2016 and where we're at in 2017, a comfortable estimate is 61,000 now.
Okay, all right.
Good question.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Good questions.
So, and that, so now you got some part-time employees to help. I just wanted to make the comment that I think that the front desk people have a tough job. I mean, they hear a lot of complaints and so forth, so I can understand some of the concerns that they have. And so I always have that concern that they have enough time to themselves after work and so forth, so. And I think hiring the part-times was part of that, to be able to cover some people if they need time off and so forth.
Yes, our part-time is actually backup staff for the paperwork process that each employee was responsible for doing at the end of their own day, and that has helped a lot. We also utilize the RSVP volunteers when we can during tax time to try to relieve that stress. Janet implemented a change in the phone situation so that the front end is not on, not in that rotation basis for the incoming phone calls, and that's helped relieve a lot of that stress as well too.
Thanks, Annette.
Okay, you're welcome.
Any other questions for Annette? Thank you, Ms. Annette.
Okay,
Have a great
you're
day.
welcome. Thank you. I will. You too.
Next, we have 911. Under emergency service.
Question for the board. When we change the date for our next meeting from the 5th to the 11th, are we going to get notices out to the people that were on the agenda for planning and zoning?
That's already been taken care of, sir.
I figured that, but I had to ask.
That's okay.
Thank you.
That's good to know.
I think we're up to 7 applicants.
You're up, sir. No sitting for the weary.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Kevin Carley, I'm the Director at the 911 Center, and this is Ted Rouflet. He's our Budget Officer and our Assistant Director of Technology. I believe you have our draft budget. Very similar to 2017. We just added in the employee compensation as we were requested to. Also, we've got some annual costs incorporated for Camp Rapid, which is a backup center project we're working on, which we can get into if you have questions about it.
You could tell us about it.
We
Is
have
that
a
okay?
presentation for it.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to have Ted do that. He's the lead on that project, so I'm going to have Ted recap that.
Is that okay, Board, if he does that presentation with the
Sure.
Okay.
Camp Rapid? Okay.
Okay. Our budget has been approved by our users board. We just made a couple of minor changes at their request. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ted. Like I said, he's the budget officer and he's the lead on the Camp Rapid project, so he can walk you through that and answer any questions that you have.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ted Rufflet. I just want to do a real quick recap on some of the budget items, and then we'll answer any questions you've got about Camp Rapid. As Kevin said, really the only thing that increased our budget this year were the proposed salary adjustments, which we would ask you to support if possible. They are important to our department as well, with the 24/7 operation and the high-stress job that it is. Wages are very important, and retaining people and attracting good skill. And then the backup dispatch center, which we're proposing to move to Camp Rapid. So the personnel increases are about $70,000, and the operation is about $61,000, and almost all of those costs are related to increases we're building into next year's budget for the Camp Rapid project, if we're able to go forward with that. Of course, if that was not approved or weren't able to go forward, then those costs would not be there. We wouldn't spend those funds. So overall, right now, we're looking at about a $132,000 increase, which is 3.52% over this year. Since we have some new commissioners, I just wanted to real quick brief you on how our budget is split, because it's a little bit confusing. First off, we take all of the 911 surcharge that we collect and apply it to the budget first. And so we're projecting that at about $1,220,000. So that would represent about 31% of our total budget. Then any contract revenue that we generate, and that would be things like, we have a contract with the State Department of Public Safety. We provide state radio dispatch services for them. We have an agreement with Jackson County to be their 911 dispatch center. We also provide dispatching service for Box Elder Police Department, Badlands National Park, Piedmont Fire and Ambulance, and we do some alarm monitoring, mostly of government buildings now. For example, the school district, we monitor all the schools, so they pay us some revenue every year. That contract revenue generates about $431,000 a year.
Mr.
which
Ted, just one thing, sometimes when you're describing what it is, the line number helps under like
Sure.
415, the group insurance, or 428 utilities. That way, we can kind of follow where you're going with the numbers.
You bet.
Is that okay, sir?
Absolutely. Now, you're looking, so I'm going to refer to what you should have had
On
from
revenues.
from
Okay,
Julie, yeah,
yes,
from
right.
revenues.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of just working down the list there as it appears on the revenue sheet. So
Okay.
911 surcharge, of course, I spoke about that. And then on this list, of course, it lists Pennington County and Rapid City next, but I'm going to skip those and come back to them. Jackson County, the Department of Public Safety, and then under dispatch services, so that's that 034291. That groups all of those together that I was just mentioning, Box Elder, Badlands. Those are individually fairly small revenue, but in total, that comes to about 11% of our budget. So after we've applied the 911 surcharge and contract revenue, then the remainder to be funded is split 2/3, 1/3 between the city and county. And that's a long-standing agreement from back in 1990 when our agency was formed, when the city and county got together and decided how they were going to organize and fund our department. So, for example, Rapid City next year, they would pay about 37% of our budget. And what that leaves is the county then, when we've applied all the other revenue sources, then we look at how much county general tax dollars. So for this year, 2017, out of a $3.7 million budget, the county is funding $677,000, or about 18% of our budget. And then for next year, 2018 proposed, The county's share would be $731,000, and, which is about 19% of our budget. So, one note on the 911 surcharge. Unfortunately, that has been trending down now for several years. Mainly two reasons. Of course, people in droves have been getting rid of their home phones, and so we don't get that $1.25 anymore. And a lot of people are also switching from a monthly billed cell phone where they get a monthly bill and they're going to prepaid. And so on prepaid, we don't get the $1.25. We get a 2% surcharge that's applied at the point of sale, which generates some revenue, but the net effect there is that our revenue has continued to go down to where now, in 2018, we're projecting it's probably going to go down another 11,000 to that 1,220,000. So that's still a good chunk of money, and it does fund a considerable percentage of our budget, but it has been trending down. And it's probably going to continue to trend down here until we reach some point where, this prepaid, that's a fairly inexpensive option for a lot of people, and I think we'll get to that point where we've hit that balance. And the surcharge was increased also a couple years ago by the legislature from 75 cents to $1.25, and the county gets 87 cents of that back. So while about $70,000 of our 2018 increase is the wages, and that's the proposed wage increases, the other $61,000 in increases is all related to Camp Rapid, the project of moving our backup center to Camp Rapid. We've built them in for 2018, and so what I wanted to do, we included a packet, a PDF PowerPoint in your packet, and if you want to follow along on that, we can do that. Yes, ma'am.
Just a second, the Verizon Elkvale Tower, can you?
Yes, ma'am, sorry. That's a potential new revenue source. Verizon has contacted us. They are interested in co-locating on the Elkvale Road Tower. And if we get that done, that would bring in about $30,000 a year in additional revenue into our budget.
Thank you,
So we're working very hard with them to get that done.
thank you, sir. Any questions before he goes to the Camp Rapid?
This is the handout, it's a PDF, and if you'd like, I can walk you through that. And I can go page by page if you'd like, or I can kind of give you the high points, whichever you prefer.
What do you prefer? Board,
Just do the high points.
All right, I can do that.
everybody okay with that? You just talk a lot. Okay, high points it is.
All right. Well, the first thing is that there's a state administrative rule that requires every 911 center to have a backup facility. And ours dates back about 12 to 13 years. We are still using that same facility. It's in the basement of Fire Station 6. That's one of the issues with the current facility is it was built for our workload that was 13 years ago. So all the original equipment, other than some PCs that have been replaced over the years, is still there. Our original plan was to remodel that basement of Station 6 and enlarge it there. When Mark Rolfing was the fire chief, he had offered that entire space. That's where the fire prevention offices are today. He had offered that entire space to us, and because the fire department had plans of building a new headquarters building and putting the fire prevention folks downtown, that hasn't come to fruition, and it doesn't look like it's going to, at least not in the foreseeable future. And so our users board, because of the need, our need is great for a enhanced and enlarged backup facility. They asked us to try and find a new location to move it to. And so we were talking with the National Guard, and they made some space available to us. And what we're proposing there is about $850,000 in new equipment. We would fund that with existing lease purchase dollars that are in our budget. So several years ago, we built the 2 radio towers to improve radio coverage in the Rapid City metro area. And then, of course, we moved the 911 center to this building. And so those 2 lease purchase payments the final payments on those will be made next year. One of those payments is for that radio tower equipment, and the other one was for the new equipment here. So our proposal is to keep the payment that we're using for the equipment here and just continue that out for 5 more years. to pay for the additional new equipment that we would need at Camp Rapid. So we're updating this 12-year-old equipment, getting rid of that, putting new equipment at Camp Rapid, and adding positions. And so that's our funding proposal for the big part of that project, which is that equipment from Motorola. That would allow us to increase the number of positions there, and that's the other big problem with the current backup, is if we did have an emergency here and we had to operate from there, there's just 5 positions, and we just can't operate with 5 people anymore with the call volume we have and the number of agencies that we serve. So at Camp Rapid, at South Dakota National Guard, they are offering to remodel this space, bring it to our needs as far as emergency power, electrical. And then one of the big advantages we have is that we have our own radio technicians. So we're gonna be able to do all of the setup and assembly work ourselves, which will save us a considerable amount of money. We can get it done right, do it ourselves. And we're also we saved all of the furniture from the old dispatch center at the Public Safety Building. We disassembled it, we wrapped it, we have it in cold storage, so we're planning to use those as the furniture in the Camp Rapid facility. That'll save about $200,000 just on furniture alone, the console equipment that you have to hold all the electronics. We were asked to look for a space where they could also put in a backup emergency operations center. If this building was taken out and it disabled the 911 center, it's probably going to take out the EOC as well. And so that would give Dustin and emergency management a space to work out of. So we still have some additional details to work out with the National Guard. We're looking, we'll either be bringing a joint powers agreement or a regular lease to the Users Board and the Commission to get that approval. And we're hoping to start setting that up at the end of this year after the rally, late summer, early fall. And we would like to have that new facility online early next year. There will be some agreements. The lease purchase, of course, would have to come to the Commission for approval. And the details on that, we've sent to Julie Pearson, and the bonding attorney is looking at that to make sure it doesn't affect our bonding or anything. As soon as we have everything pulled together, we'll be bringing that back to you. Anybody have any questions on the Camp Rapid project?
Ted, tell me about, what'd you say you had 850,000 in where?
The cost of the equipment that we would need at Camp Rapid is, and the number, we haven't finalized counts on some of the equipment. It's right about $850,000. That would be a lease purchase that we would do through Motorola.
Okay,
And then we have $173,000 in our budget right now
okay,
that we're making lease purchase payments on.
okay,
So the current lease purchase will be paid off next year, 2018.
yes, sir.
That's in the budget.
Okay,
Our proposal would be to just keep that money in our budget for an additional 5 years to pay off the new equipment for Camp Rapid.
thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Question?
And we would, if any of the commissioners would like to tour the existing backup center or the proposed location at Camp Rapid, we'd be more than happy to take you up there and show you where we're looking at.
I would like to do that. I don't know if anybody else would, but
Yeah, I wouldn't mind taking a look.
not this week, but sometime in the next
Sure.
like, month or so. if
We'll,
that's
we'll,
cool.
we'll work with you to find a date that works, and then we'll get it set up.
I'm assuming that we exhausted all other options as far as any county buildings that we have space in, like the old courthouse or anything like that.
We did an extensive look for space that would work. One of the problems with staying in this area is we want to get some geodiversity.
Gotcha.
Our current center is located up in Fire Station 6, which is up by where the old ranch was. It's an excellent location. In fact, if we could stay there, that would be the preferred space because it's so good. But the fire department, we've waited 3 years already, and that center continues to get older and more outdated and more, where it just doesn't meet our needs. So we were forced to look elsewhere, and the National Guard was very, I can't speak highly enough about the National Guard. They actually made several spaces available to us, and we might actually have a change in space out there. We might go from this spot to this spot. We're still working through those details. Regardless of which building we end up in, the costs are going to be the same. And the things that they're going to provide, like emergency power and remodeling, will remain the same as well.
And what was that per month? Did you ever
They're,
say
they're
that?
proposing $2,000 a month rent,
Okay,
which is for, 1,500 to 2,500 square feet that includes all the utilities, janitorial. I mean, it's a
okay.
very good deal for.
And
the
just for
county.
clarification, geographical diversity is to basically, if this center gets wiped out and we're only 2 blocks away, that
Correct.
one's probably going to get wiped out too.
Exactly. I mean, two blocks away just isn't enough separation for that type of a facility.
Thank you.
Any other questions on our budget?
Just a minute to look at it, Ted.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Sometimes things come up after a few minutes. when you look at
Understand. It's
some-
Is there any thought in the legislature of increasing the surcharge for the prepaid phones?
I would say no, because they just enacted on the prepaid, we never had a surcharge on that, so they went with a 2%.
Okay.
I would say maybe a little down the road, if we keep seeing that switch over to prepaid,
Right.
then that might generate that discussion.
Well, I'm sure it's not just affecting our county.
No, it's
affecting the
statewide.
entire
Correct,
state.
correct. I'm sorry, Holly?
You take calls simultaneously at both centers, or what's
No.
your transition from one to the other?
Yeah, I mean, we can run both centers at the same time if we want to. And in fact, at Camp Rapid, we would probably use it, for example, during the rally. We probably would handle all of our Department of Public Safety duties up there. That would allow us to increase the local capacity here, which is, I hate to say when you build a brand-new center and you build it with 10 or 20-year growth in mind, but the rally has gotten so crazy that even the last couple of years, we've really been at with the 15 positions we have, we've just had, we've had them all staffed, and there's been times when we could have used more. So that'll actually give us a really nice option to go up there, operate from there, and here at the same time. We also usually we operate from the backup center. We try to do it every other month for 2 or 3 hours live, where we actually roll 911 up there and handle everything from up there to test the system and look for bugs and fix problems and keep it ready to go.
How long you been with us, Ted?
A long time, ma'am, 27 years.
I wanted to thank you for that because you can tell that experience has made a huge difference for our center there. So we appreciate you very much. I don't know if you know that, but I always hear your experience has always worked well in there. So with the 911, and then also your whole center has always had good feedback from our people in our districts. I know from different people coming up at bingo in different areas that I go, or grocery stores, about how polite and how helpful you guys are. So we appreciate what you do. It's a very hard job to listen to people in a crisis and try to figure out what's next for them. So we appreciate you and your services that your department does.
Thank you, and we appreciate the commission's support. They've always been very supportive of what we do, so thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Next is Dustin from Emergency Management.
All right, my name is Dustin Willett. I'm the Director of Emergency Management for Rapid City, Pennington County Emergency Management. Good morning, Chairwoman Hadcock, members of the commission.
Morning,
So
Dustin.
I've got multiple budgets that my office is responsible for that I prepare that are separate and distinct. In years past, I've just simply gone through each budget, given a quick overview of what it is, how it's funded, why it exists, and stood for questions on that particular budget before moving forward. If that's amiable with the board, I'd be happy to do that again.
Yep, just go through like I think that's what you said, go through the first one and any questions, and the second one, that way if they have questions, because there's a lot to go through each part.
You bet.
I appreciate it, Dustin.
Be my pleasure. So the first one I have here is titled Emergency Responses. It's Fund 101, Department 285. Is that what you have in front of you?
Yes, sir.
So emergency responses, and some of these headings have changed over the last few years as the auditor's office has consolidated different budgets for the sake of keeping things cleaner. So this budget here includes our Met Warren contract, which is our
Dustin, that's not what they have.
That isn't what we have,
They're on emergency management 2260285.
yeah.
Okay, so you tell me which budgets you have in which order, and I will address them that way.
226-0285.
Okay?
Emergency
so,
management.
Emergency management, the big one. All right, so this is the budget that funds basically the emergency management program for Rapid City, Pennington County, our office budget. This one is funded through a joint powers agreement with the city of Rapid City. That agreement has been in place in some fashion or another since 1978. The most current joint powers agreement was approved by the Rapid City Council and the Pennington County Commission in 2012, I'm sorry. So the way the funding works is we have federal grant dollars passed through the state called EMPG, or Emergency Management Performance Grant dollars. Those are our DHS FEMA monies that are made available to the states. Every state in the nation avails themselves of those dollars. That's how most emergency management organizations at the county level from coast to coast are in part funded. So that the EMPG grant covers up to 50% of allowable costs. So there's a very narrow definition of what costs are allowable under emergency management performance grant. Staff time, office supplies, so payroll is the most significant, and then some office supplies, fuel, that type of stuff is eligible for that 50% EMPG grant match. For the dollars outside of the budget, for the remaining balance that the emergency management performance grant doesn't cover, that remaining balance is equally split between the city of Rapid City and Pennington County. So last year, the percentages worked out about 38% EMPG and then 31% both to the city and 31% to the county. This year, the EMPG is projected to cover about 32%, with Rapid City at 34% and the Pennington County at 34%. So we're right at about a third in terms of federal funding, city funding, and county funding for this
City,
budget.
so city is 34, and what are we?
34. It's equal,
Sorry.
equal between the
Sorry.
city and the county.
Sorry.
So for every dollar that the county invests in the emergency management program, it's matched by two other dollars, both through the $1 from the city, $1 basically from the federal government in that EMPG pass-through. So it's a good value of, and shows the value of intergovernmental cooperation and having joint offices. Do you have any questions regarding the budget that's in front of you? Any
Okay.
specific?
226, any questions? I think some people are figuring stuff, so give us just a minute, Dustin.
Absolutely.
It always takes, again, a few minutes to go through some of the budget pieces, so.
My next commitment is 2 o'clock this afternoon, so.
So your utilities went up, Dustin, 31,000, and your assets, 32? Utilities, what was it, utilities, operations, sorry.
Yeah, total operations. So that includes,
COLA and steps?
nope, that's personnel. So operations, the most significant increase in operations is, that's where I have money placed in my budget to support the backup center, the move that Ted just went over with the 911 center. We would be
Okay.
partners in that.
There you go.
So there's money there. There's money, Commissioner DeSanto, when I gave the presentation of the Everbridge software, the emergency notification software, that $18,000 contract that we cost shared this year to get going is placed entirely in the 2018 EM budget. So those are the significant increases that are coming up in the operations budget. Are basically those two items account for almost that entire increase in operations budget. Nothing else, we held the line on everything else.
Okay.
Your assets increased because of,
So the capital asset was years ago, when I first started in this position with the county, I created some funds looking down the road, 10, 15 years for vehicle replacement, radio replacement, siren replacement, and a commission years ago decided that saving money in capital improvement funds was not how they wanted to do business. And if you just had these big expenses, you were just supposed to come for that year and ask for the whole thing. And there was a meeting between my users board and the county auditor, the city finance officer, within the last year, where we sat down and they said, why aren't you, it centered around sirens. Why are these big siren costs coming up? My answer was because the commission directed me to not have these funds set aside to just come with these large requests when they come due. And I was advised by the EM Users Board, the Pennington County Auditor, and the Rapid City Finance Officer to reinstitute those capital improvement programs so that that money was there and available when those needs came due. So we have radio communication equipment that reaches
forward.
end of life. We have siren maintenance that reaches end of life. We have vehicles that reach end of life. So what you're seeing there in capital asset, I haven't had any capital assets in the last 2 years. And so that's a completely new, over the last 2 years, a completely new cost that I'm including in my budget. I think it's the right way to go. That's the way I originally wanted to do my budget and was at one point told not to, and then more recently, between the county auditor, users board, and city finance officer, redirected to establish those.
Thank you. Any other questions on this budget? Board? If not, let's go to the next one if that's okay.
Which one is that?
Let's see.
101-285.
101-285, titled Emergency Responses.
Enter.
So this budget includes the Met Warren contract, which is an annual joint funding agreement between Pennington County and then the Department of Interior U.S. Geological Survey. And this is for the 18 Met Warren stations. There are flood warning stations. They provide satellite relayed information on the amount of rainfall and then the stage or the height of a particular waterway or drainage at the point where that monitor is. Again, there's 18 throughout Pennington County. This was an incredibly wise and forward-looking project that was put in place basically as it took 20 years, but it was as a result of the 1972 flood. Basically, this provides up to 4 or even 6 hours of warning that we've got a large amount of water moving down the drainages. So it provides for an incredible amount of forewarning for flood events in Pennington County.
Is that new, is it the tornado one and flood that you're doing? Is tornado different now? I knew you were doing some
So
different.
public warning is a completely separate, that was in the previous budget, and that's our public notification. These are actually satellite-based gauging stations that are put along different waterways in Pennington County. The funding for this, it's the joint funding agreement. The total cost of the program is split between Pennington County and U.S. Geological Survey. And then within the Pennington County portion, we bill out different municipalities, Rapid City, Box Elder, Hill City, Keystone, Rapid Valley Sanitary District, all contribute portions to our part of that match. So the county cost for this year is $9,907. And so those costs, we get a spreadsheet that projects a few years from the U.S. Geological Survey on what that costs to maintain, run that data, the satellite time. But maintenance and operation are the big ones, as well as that computer processing power that turns that data into useful information for us in terms of public warning and flood warning.
So Dustin, you were saying that this one includes the water sensors in the creek, is that what you?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, that's what Met Warren is. The other two portions of this emergency response budget are the county contributions to the Regional Hazardous Materials Team and the Regional Water Rescue Dive Rescue Team. And those were established by intergovernmental agreements between the City of Rapid City and Pennington County back in 2000. And they've been perpetual agreements since then. Those amounts we've held steady since 2015. So we haven't increased those funding amounts since 2015. The city matches those dollars, and then those dollars are what's used to fund the joint Rapid City Pennington County Water Rescue Dive Rescue Team and the Regional Hazardous Materials Response Team.
I'd like, this is besides the point, I'd probably like to get together with you after the meeting sometime and compare what happened in 1972 with our technology and where we are today
You
as
bet.
far as the response to see, because I happened to listen to Mr. Barnett several times on how he had to get the word out, and it wasn't I mean, he was out in Canyon Lake and they had to try to get the radio stations. Now with technology, it's so much different from way back then.
So my office with Alexa White at the lead has put together exactly that information, both for the 40th anniversary and for the upcoming 45th anniversary. We actually had some big display parts at the Journey Museum that our office provided that speaks directly to that question. So we have that information in museum quality ready to present for you.
Nice, that would be a good presentation for our county cares.
We'd be happy to do it.
That's okay, Lloyd?
Yeah, that'd be
Okay.
fine with me.
That's all, thank you.
So any questions over that emergency response budget, those three components, Met-Warn, hazardous materials, and water rescue?
Thank you, Dustin. Next one.
Which budget do you have in front of you
22,
next?
sorry, 227.
0283?
Yes, sir.
Local Emergency Planning Committee. Local Emergency Planning Committee, LEPC, is the county organization that's responsible for the Superfund Amendment Reauthorization Act, or SARA, was passed by Congress in 1986. This includes different titles. Title III or Title II is what people are probably most aware of, and this is the community right to know. So you, as a citizen, have the right to know what chemicals are stored right next to you in your community, what chemicals are being used, what chemicals are in different facilities. This came into the national spotlight with the West Texas fertilizer plant explosion. When that happened, a lot of the local politicians, local residents, even local emergency responders said, we had no idea that facility was capable of causing that type of destruction in our community. That's exactly what LEPCs and SARA Title II are designed to avert. That's supposed to make sure that everybody knows what's in their community and what the response is to that community. It's made up of multiple stakeholders from government, private industry, media, military. It's a large group. Commissioner Hadcock sits in on that group. Chairwoman Hadcock sits in on that group. It's a great group. We get a lot of good work done. Again, it's based on federal legislation, and then there is state supporting legislation. So on the state codified law, this comes in under Title I, Chapter 50, Section 8, where the fees, so how this is funded, it's a grant-supported budget. So this budget before you is requesting spending authority. The only way we can spend these dollars is if we get granted those dollars from the state. If we don't get the money from the state, there's nothing to spend. So this is a 100% grant-supported budget. And when I say grant, it's granted from DENR, from the state, actually from the State Emergency Response Commission, and I'm one of those, one of the commissioners actually on that commission. But these monies are user fees, hazardous materials user fees. So in state codified law, if you use X chemicals or X amount of chemicals, you are required to pay a fee for using those hazardous materials. If you use, store, dispose of hazardous materials, the state charges a fee. And so out of those fees, they fund all the county LEPCs. So that's where that money comes from. The DENR passes a portion of those user fees on to our local emergency planning committee, and that's what's represented by this.
Dustin, a thought that it came to my mind after our last meeting with focusing on this, where you were going to go out and audit the highway basically for hazardous materials that pass through.
Yes, commodity flow studies fall under the purview of LEPC, absolutely.
Was the silos downtown at Dakota Mill and Grain, are those included in? I mean, they're not a chemical, but they're definitely explosive.
So we define those more, again, they don't fall under, there are actually some chemicals that they use in that facility. So, but the silos themselves and the grains they use, so Dakota Mill and Grain actually is on LEPC's radar. We actually do work with them.
Okay.
In terms of the grain dust explosion hazard and that type of stuff, we call those target hazards, and the Rapid City Fire Department specifically deals with those target hazards within the community that pose those types of dangers. So dust explosion, grain explosion, there's a lot of heavy timber in there, a lot of combustible materials. So the fire department does regular, not inspections necessarily, but walkthroughs and familiarizations, and gets to know the staff, and the staff points out the areas, and they walk through the elevator on a regular basis, so that the responders are familiar with what's there and what the hazards are, what the access would be, and those facilities, those target hazard facilities, are extensively pre-planned from an emergency response component.
Okay. And then as far as getting that information out to the public, how do we do that? I mean, as
In
far
terms
as,
of,
this is for letting the public know that we have some hazardous materials.
Oh,
How do they
gotcha.
find out about that?
Yep. So the primary portal is Emergency Management's county webpage. We have an entire page dedicated to LEPC, Community Right to Know. We maintain a database, an annually updated database of reporting entities. So anybody that calls our office that lives in Pennington County, we absolutely give them the information we have. We're required to. That's what Title II is, Community Right to Know. So we're we provide that information to the community as the community asks, and then through events. So our Disaster Awareness Day, we have an LEPC booth where we interact with the public. Some of the other projects LEPC does, that's why we have media as part of that committee. How do we get that message out? How do we let the public know that if they want that information, they can come get that information? But like the hazardous household waste disposal event we just had at the fairgrounds, that's something that is spearheaded by the Rapid City Solid Waste Material Recovery Facility, but we help with the funding, we help with the organization, we help with the media releases surrounding that. So that's a big project for LEPC as well.
Very good, thank you.
You bet. Any other questions on the LEPC budget?
Board? Next ones are all 226. Are they just reiterating what was in the,
Which one do you have now? 225? 285? 226, 0285?
yep, we have like a few of them that are
This is the-
smaller.
This is the last, yeah, I don't know why those numbers are the same. I'll have to look at that.
Yep. Are these just detailing?
Nope, these are separate budgets, so I just missed the numbers on the top. The pandemic flu, emergency management pandemic flu budget, this is the last time you will see this. I have permission of Julie to not include this budget anymore. You can see that.
Hold
that-
on just a sec. Des.
Nope.
Yeah, you-
Okay, it's
you
the
lost
next
us.
one with the blue, the littler page right here. Can everybody see the pandemic flu? There you go.
Yeah, okay.
Okay,
This is the last time this will be before you. This money had all been spent in 2016. There is nothing this year, there is nothing next year. This budget goes away. So
Okay.
this is the last time you'll see this.
thank you. Any questions on that? Okay,
So the last one should be the Homeland Security equipment.
okay.
Gotcha.
There's another one on publishing supplies, the 21,124. Did you get that one too? Or is that
Shows
285?
nothing in the request.
That was pandemic flu, but that was from 2016.
Okay, that one, 285?
It should be all zeros, Deb, for
Okay,
2018.
okay.
Is that the
The
one?
pandemic, I understand, but I thought there was one before it,
Oh, no, we're
on
good.
publishing, okay. Sorry, Dustin,
That's okay.
okay.
Homeland Security.
So the Homeland Security equipment budget, similar to the LEPC budget, this is spending authority. So this is, the only way money gets spent out of this budget is if we are awarded grant dollars through Homeland Security. So this is simply a spending authority account for the state Homeland Security grant program. Western South Dakota, the 9 counties that comprise our region, which is Region 4, typically get between $500,000 and $550,000 a year to split between all 9 counties. And it's a competitive process. Each county, for the last several years, each county is allowed to bring 4 projects forward. And then we rank, prioritize those projects between all the counties and divvy up that money as it's available. So typically, the Pennington County allocation is well under $100,000 is what we are granted through the State Homeland Security Grant Program. It's a reimbursement program, so we have to spend the money up front. It comes out of the restricted fund balance of emergency management. We put all that money to all the paperwork to the state sends it to the feds, and we get reimbursed for whatever we've been approved on that grant. So this is simply spending authority for the annual Homeland Security Grant Program. Nothing gets spent out of this if we don't get the grant money. The other thing we run through this is the Special Response Team or the SWAT team funding and some of the regional response team funding for Rapid City, Pennington County. It's the same grant, and so it runs through this spending authority.
And that's 175 this year?
Yep.
And
Yep.
then, do you have projects that you are working on for 2017 that's going to be used for?
So we have applications in,
Okay.
and it's totally based on when the federal government decides how much they're going to fund a grant program. So this always trails where we're at. So in 2017, I don't have the spreadsheet in front of me, but there are there's four, at least three, and maybe four projects in Pennington County that are on the list. So if we get the grant funding, those projects are already pre-approved and ready to be funded when the federal government, if and when the federal government makes those funds available.
What are those projects?
So off the top of my head, there is some communication equipment for the mass casualty transport bus that we have. That's a small one. There's one from the sheriff's office, there's one from search and rescue, and there's a tracked all-terrain firefighting vehicle from Whispering Pines Volunteer Fire Department, I believe, that are on that list right now. I think there's some communication equipment for search and rescue, some communication equipment for my office. There's something from the sheriff's office, and I can't remember exactly what that is right now. And then Whispering Pines has a tracked UTV. I'm sorry, I didn't bring that spreadsheet with me.
Maybe you could send it to us.
You bet.
That would be nice. Okay, thank you.
And again, that's contingent on the funding coming through, so those aren't.
Yes, sir. But it's just maybe in 2016, what projects you did, just so we kind of familiar with what kind of Homeland Security funds are spent on throughout Pennington County.
Be happy to provide that report.
Thank you, sir.
What I've seen in the past is generators for buildings in case the electricity goes up. What else?
Zerker, our CAD software, we had a big portion of,
At one time, didn't the schools want some for some locks on their doors?
schools have historically had, for years and years and years under this program, have gotten electronic locks on their doors.
That's the kind of stuff that I've seen go through there.
For lockdown.
We had talked about,
For security,
Dustin, evacuation plans, and you said there was like maybe we needed to start doing something different that you were looking at. This was brought up by the Salvation Army evacuation plan that I was, and this board, I shouldn't say this board was thinking about moving forward on and having those guys have that evacuation plan. But you had talked about there's maybe other areas that we need to move forward and put those on the list. So for the future, I believe it's a safety plan for Pennington County in those areas, and maybe we could get that list and start working towards how we get that done.
I think
Does that make sense?
there's a discussion there to be had.
Okay.
This probably isn't the right forum to do that, but the question becomes, I mean, you're talking to a guy that loves preparedness, loves planning, loves safety. So
Right.
I'm going to be very, very one-sided in yes, I think that would be fantastic. But we need to have a discussion on what types of plans are the county going to require, what kind of liability, if there is a county-approved plan, what does that mean? What is that? So we just need to have a discussion on how much the county wants to get into requiring plans, and then what, are we going to be approving the plans or just reviewing the plans? Or there's some questions there that I have regarding, I love the thought, love the process, would love to have the discussion. How we operationalize that, I just have a few
Well, the bottom
questions.
line is if there's some huge areas that, you have 5 people, that's not gonna be your priority, but you have 100 people staying at a camp and 20 people with one access, that's gonna be a priority. So maybe we can identify some of those areas and even if we don't have to do anything in one, how do you say it? That we want to make them aware that we are here to help them, and if there's anything in Homeland Security or something that, and we could put in to help that district to move it, more secure for emergency services, that's what I
Totally willing
brought that
and-
forward.
Sounds great, totally willing to have those discussions. Like I
Okay.
said, I just need to figure out
Okay.
how we're going to operationalize
Because
that.
it's been on my mind since we had discussed that with the Salvation Army, and I think it'd be positive for our county for being helpful to the areas that might be, where are you going to go if it floods? Where are you going to, and I talked to Jerome as well, and he said, it's going to be one plan for emergency services. It's not going to be the fire, flood, whatever. It's going to be emergency services. What do we do?
Yep. We
And
call
I
them comprehensive emergency action plans.
And I think our citizens in our community would appreciate that if we could do anything to help. So just something, food for thought.
Dustin, how do we work in conjunction with Ellsworth and National Guard on Homeland Security? Do we?
in Homeland Security, so
That area
specifically with.
for.
Homeland Security is a really, really big umbrella. I'm not gonna try to dodge a question, I just wanna
okay,
narrow
so
down what you're
Let's
asking.
say there's an incident where we have an active shooter or something like that that's on the behalf of ISIS. How does the county and the sheriff's department work in conjunction with National Guard and do we
So in that
have any
specific.
plan where we all get together and say, hey, we got to take care of this problem?
So in that specific example, it would depend on where it occurred. So if it occurs close to Ellsworth Air Force Base, there are mutual aid agreements that allow Ellsworth Fire Department to come outside the gate and respond. Really, it comes down to what resources do they have that are available and what time frame that we would need. So the working relationships that we have with the National Guard and Ellsworth are fantastic. So if there's a need, we are able to meet that need. One thing to keep in mind is both the National Guard and Ellsworth, those resources come with a hefty price tag. Somebody always ends up writing a check at the end of the day. And National Guard and military assets tend to be expensive. If we can do things locally, it's much more affordable. But the relationships are there, the discussions are there. If there's a need, we can make that happen. I've been involved with emergency management on Camp Rapid to review and help and go over their internal active shooter plans, because we are the responders to that. Our ambulances, our fire trucks, our law enforcement would be the ones going on to Camp Rapid to help mitigate that situation. Ellsworth's a different story. They're more self-contained. They have security forces. Our EMS would absolutely be involved in that. So large air shows that happen on base, Dakota Thunder, we have months of planning meetings and we have staff in their operations center while those events are going on. So
So we
there's
do have active communication.
great
between
working
them.
relationships, great communication.
I guess what I was leaning more towards is something major event like happened in Paris where some guy drives down the road with a truck and runs over a bunch of people at an event. And then there's a possibility that there's other active terrorists in other locations planning the same type of.
Yep, so there's
Situation.
real-time, good information sharing. Obviously, Ellsworth's mission is to maintain operational readiness, so they would significantly change their posture, their security posture if an event like that happened off base. And yeah, those lines of communication exist and they're robust.
Okay, good.
And Mark, the LAPC, if you have a chance, go to couple of those meetings and you'll see the military's involved, whether it's Ellsworth or National Guard, and
Right.
it's very interesting to see all the things they talk about and all the things that you just asked. Those are good questions that.
At LAPC, we have 82nd CST representation, the bioengineering flight, and Ellsworth Emergency Management are regular attendees.
And getting to ask some of the military guys some of the questions like that, or just different questions of that, is pretty cool too, so.
Okay, thank you.
Not just Dustin. Sorry, Dustin.
No. Any questions I can answer on the Homeland Security
Just go
equipment
to one or
budget?
two minutes, very cool.
Okay.
Okay.
Any more questions for Dustin? Dustin, your book of knowledge.
Thank you, Dustin.
If you want to
bet.
know something about emergency management, I'll just tell you guys, I went to a couple different places with Dustin, and I can tell you, more people ask him the questions in the different counties and the different areas, and he always has a good answer, and he knows the answer. So, and he also, what I've seen is he helps them do these plans or with the grants and the things that they need to get done, whether it's their fire departments or their police departments or sheriff departments. Dustin gets it done.
One team,
So
one fight, and I only can do that.
I've had a lot of compliments on you that way, Dustin, so thank you.
Can only do that with your continued support, the council's continued support, and the incredible staff that I have, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Miss Donna, Register of Deeds. The talkative one.
The what?
I said the talkative one.
Oh, sure.
You're always so quiet, Miss Donna.
I need foot support.
Okay.
So if I make funny faces, it's not you guys, it's the foot giving me a pinch. I had foot surgery in April. So I'm better. I at least got the same kind of shoes on. So, good morning.
morning,
Thank
Ms.
you,
Donna.
Madam Chairman and board members. I want to thank you for the additional FTE that became effective this year, 2017. It has distributed our helping of the public and handling our workload to more shoulders and has allowed for better training of my new staff members. So thank you so much. It's a big, huge difference. On the budget, for my regular budget, 163, I calculated my personnel budget lines as instructed. I would like to strongly encourage you to approve the wage increases for 2018. I have a number of new employees that are receiving the same salary as an employee that has been in my office since 2014, and she's had to help train these 3 employees. It does not make for good morale amongst the staff. On my operational budget line, I did an increase on the repair and maintenance line to cover the increase for my portion of the scanning maintenance agreement for the county. And I did a small increase on my utility line because there's always increases there every year. And I moved the rental fee money of $2,010 down into that, which is not required anymore, to my equipment line to cover costs for replacement of equipment that occur every year and any unexpected replacements because of breakdowns that seem to occur also. So and my revenue, I kept the same estimates as I had for 2017 because my document count has not increased enough to warrant a major increase in revenue. So I'm open for questions if you have any.
Can you explain Modernization Preservation Fund?
Yep, that's coming up next.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were.
That's okay. That's okay.
I thought you meant the.
Yep. Don't want to rush you. Okay, Modernization and Preservation Fund. And the same things I'm saying here, I have also printed out and made copies for you if you'd like it. It is not part of the general fund and is to be used by the Register of Deeds only. Fund was created in 2012. Did you want this handout first? Okay, I'll just keep talking.
I think we have, you guys,
Okay,
are
you've
you
got
guys
some of
on
it
the
there, all right.
modernization, this one? There's actually a paper on it.
You had notes. in
I had
your
notes at the back,
spreadsheet.
yeah,
Okay.
as to how I was going to use the money.
Okay,
That's
Okay.
in their books.
All right, but I want to give you a general, because some of you guys are new and some of you might need a review again. The fund was created in 2012 because many counties were not backing up their permanent records because of a lack of income, and they weren't able to accomplish any modernization because of lack of funding also, because of lack of funds. We did have the Corson County Courthouse burned down. Luckily, the Register of Deeds was very good about closing her safe door, and she had the old-fashioned safe that was thick walls, major 2-door system, so that her records were not lost. True, they are backed up at the abstract office, because many of these smaller counties don't have the money to put them on film. They still have them in the paper form. And even if you digitize them or scan them in, that is not considered archival preserved. It has to either be on paper or on film. So with the Corson County Courthouse burning, we've had floods, we've had tornadoes. So also we were getting pushed by companies that wanted to come in and do e-recordings. We were not ready for that yet. We were concerned about them coming in and start talking to some of people's and create laws that were not good for the Register of Deeds or for the county. So we went in 2012 and created a flat fee, recording fee of $30 for the majority of our recording and filing documents. $25 goes into the general fund. $3 goes into the County Register of Deeds Modernization and Preservation Relief Fund. That stays in the county. $2 goes to the, is sent to PEER, to the South Dakota Association of County Officials. They were appointed by law to maintain that fund, and that is accumulated for a year, and from July 1st to June 30th. Money has to be sent to them on a monthly basis. As you accumulate, then we keep totals of it, and it's turned over to them on a monthly basis. Then, and by or either on or before August 31st, the funds that have been accumulated there for the year are divided 66 by 66 for each county, and each of us receive allotment. So the first year, it was really a great amount because there was a lot of little counties that were thinking, oh, we're not going to get anything. And we were able to distribute $5,600 that first year. So that was pretty cool. And then the last years, because of the economy going down the tubes, it's averaging between $4,500 to $4,600 per year that we also get. So you are getting money, you're getting $3 from your own documents that stays right here in the county, and then you're also getting a little bit of a boost, especially for these little counties, gives them a little bit of a boost so they can start preserving and start modernization. And like I said, it cannot be used for salaries. It cannot be used for anything that was being done in my office before 2012. That still has to be maintained by the county. But any preservation or modernization, software, we have a whole list of what we can and can't do with it. And so like this year, what I am going to be doing is I have already, my index books, I am indexing in the computer now because I have bought software for that. So I index in the computer now, but the old books still have to be used because you need the history. Well, the paper is getting very frail. So I had U.S. Records come in and give me an estimate, and we will be encapsulating them into an envelope and having to split the books because it makes them quite thick. So that is costing me about $17,000. So that's coming out of this M&P fund. And then also I finally have been able to get a good redaction company and find so that we are going to do about 1.65 million pages of my scanned records. They're going to go through them and redact the Social Security numbers off of it. And then I am going to open up to the public access to my indexing and my records back to about 1990. And that way it'll cut down some of the phone calls that we are getting. Also, they will be paying me like an access fee, and then they will pay the $1. I can't trust them, excuse me, but I'm not trusting them. I can't trust the public that they are going to only print the documents that they want, because there is little old cameras that you can take pictures of them, or you can do, what's that technology? There's another one where you can capture it and move it over, and the software will not detect it. So what I am, there has been another state that their laws are like ours, and what they require is if you look at that page, you pay the $1. So they know the documents well enough. They know which pages to go to find which page they want. So it will be a little boost in the copy money, and also probably cut down some of the phone calls we get. So that is what I'm doing, a modernization with the 2017 M&P fund money, and I'm also preserving our documents, and it's coming from this pot. And the redaction is costing me right around $39,500. So that 17,000, that's 39,500, that's not coming out of the general fund. It's coming from this M&P fund.
Nice, I wanted you to explain that, because a lot of people don't know that makes the efficiency of Pennington County on some of that, where you can move some of that money towards efficiency for us, let alone thinking ahead and helping other counties to make them more efficient in Pennington County in this area. Thinking about other counties, I thought that was pretty positive of the Register of Deeds around the state, so.
Thank you. And also, with the new laws that Congress has passed with the closing, the fees have to be so accurate when you purchase property or do a closing for a mortgage, that the other states are now coming to us for our flat fee, how we did it and how we figured it out.
And you guys have some very important documents and all of that. What you are doing and moving ahead in it is very important for the future. So
Yes.
you've done that well, Ms. Donna.
Thank you, thank you. And, you know, a lot of people think, oh, we just have to be concerned about what the records are right now. We don't. We have to preserve them for the next 100 to 500 years. The documents that are in there, every time the title companies do a policy for a sale or for a mortgage, they have to have those records back to then, because there's some property that has never had an abstract on it or title insurance on it, especially the ranches. So you need to go all the way back to make sure that you've got a clear title up to present day, so that the banks don't have some heir coming back and saying, this was my grandpa's and I want my land now. So it's all important. History is important too. So, any questions?
Word?
Nope.
How much history do you have here?
I started in 2000. I was elected first time in 2000. So it's 17, it'll be 16 years, it was 16 years in November.
Thank you for your service.
You're welcome. I've always enjoyed it. I was Register of Deeds in another state, and I've always been in the title work since then, since 1983. It's an enjoyable, it's boring, but it's enjoyable. To everybody else, it's boring, not to me.
Thanks, Donna.
You're welcome. Stop in and visit
Thanks, Donna.
anytime.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Ms. Julie, our tech girl. Lori. Why do I always call you Julie? You must look like my friend Julie. I've done her hair 20 years, so.
Lori Wager, IT.
Thank you, Miss Lori,
Director
sorry.
For Pennington County. I'm here to talk about the IT budget. As with all the other departments, I fully support and encourage you to look at the wage increases for the employees. We have experienced a little bit of turnover in our department, not a huge turnover, but I have also had employees be solicited by outside departments to come work for them. I'm thankful that they stayed with us. They were key employees and decided not to take an increase and stuck with us. Other than that, that's pretty much everything with my employee stuff. The operational part of my budget, I had to raise it a little bit this year due to the fact that for the past, I don't know how many years, nobody has been paying for internet charges. So this year, we incurred it this year, we are also incurring it next year and continuing on for $1,000 a month. How this happened, I do not know, but it was discovered and we have it straightened out now. We also had to straighten out some licensing, so that increased our budget also a little bit on the operational line. Other than that, our operational budget consists mostly of licensing and replacing of switches. That's pretty much it for our budget. I just want to make a couple comments. There are going to be some things coming up in the future years.
I was just going to ask you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
One thing we've discovered just recently is that our phone system, the VIA phone system, went bankrupt. So we are going to see a change in our phone system here probably in the next 2 to 3 years. Depends on what Avaya does. Depends on if we can get our hands on equipment, but right now we're looking at the Mitel system for the highway department. In conjunction with the phone system, because of how we're set up on a PRI,
APRI.
what?
What's PRI?
I don't know what the acronym stands for. We always just call it PRI, but what it is all of the phones in the admin building, CCADP, public building, and there's some other facilities, they all go through one area. Instead of having POTS lines, they don't have their separate bills. There's only one phone bill that comes for the majority of the phone, that's your PRI. When 911 is dialed from any of those phones on that system, the address comes back as 130 Kansas City Street. And it does not say what department is in or anything on that lines. Due to that, we have researched some software that could work for our system so that E911 knows where the caller is calling from. The problem is this software, to get it up and going, is about $15,000. Annual maintenance on it is high, it's like $6,000, $6,500 a year. I'm looking for direction from you guys to help me decide whether I should throw this into my budget. I have talked to 911 about it. They believe it's a good thing to do. The hospital had the same situation. They could get a call from their Spearfish Hospital, and the address would come back at Fairmont. So they have a software in place that takes care of that issue. This would be a solution for now. If we have to switch our phones to MyTel, for instance, we could go through the phone software and we could set it up so that we could use the software itself to point 911 where to go. We would do it in groups. It's at the auditor's office, or it's at La Crosse Street, which will be over here soon, but we would be able to use our phone system. The Vias phone system does not allow that at this point.
Is any of the, like 911 or emergency or anything, could that be in any way a shared cost? Because of what it entails with identification?
I totally understand. When I went and talked to E911 about it, they don't believe it should be underneath their cover because it's like the hospital, they pay for their own. And I agree. We should pay for ours, but do we split this 13,000 up amongst all the departments, or does it just fall underneath of IT? That's kind of where I'm at with it right now. Looking for direction from you guys on this. The majority of it is in this building here, but we do have outlying facilities and could potentially have other facilities that come on also at some point in time. It might be just a couple-year thing that we have to do. Right now, what we have in place that isn't 100% reliable is if someone in the county dials 911, an email is sent out to specific people, and that tells them the call came from here. Not 100% reliable. If the email doesn't go through, if the person's not sitting at the desk looking at their emails constantly, so it's not reliable to do it that way. But we feel that it is important enough to bring up to you to figure out what we should do. Should we put it underneath our budget? What should we do with that?
I kind of think it goes underneath individuals, others' budgets. I mean, don't they charge out for your IT assistance for upgrades or calls for service that you need?
The way the phone system works is we get one bill from Midco for our PRI, and then they break it out based on your long-distance calls and a percentage. Cindy has a little formula that she uses, and she breaks that out amongst the various departments that are on that PRI. We could use something like that too. I would have to let the departments know, get the formula from Cindy on what she does. You could split it out amongst all of them. It's where I'm looking for direction. Does it fall underneath the totally IT? Should it be broke up? I mean, we don't break our servers up amongst all the different departments unless they're totally dedicated to one department.
My opinion is it should be divided up among each different department that is gonna
I agree.
benefit from
And does it,
the isolation.
Is it gonna be more difficult to do it that way, or is,
what I'm saying, let me say, sorry, the general fund is all general fund though. You see what I'm saying?
Correct.
So even if you split it, it's still coming out
Out
of
of the
am I
general fund.
correct? Mr. Busker, what do you, So the 15,
I don't think it
13 or
matters.
15, see what I'm saying?
Taxpayers are gonna pay $15,000.
Yeah,
And
that's
so-
what I'm saying.
Which fund it comes out of, as long as we all recognize the fact that
Needs to be done.
Buildings and Grounds budget actually should be another $1,000 because she's paying some of it. But I don't see it's worth the effort to split it up, but that's just my
That-
opinion.
That was my next question. I mean, is it more difficult, costing us more
That's
money
kind of a
to
good
do
point. It probably
or
is more
just
difficult.
simpler?
I don't
Because
know.
then we have to keep in mind each line item in each different department, and
Right. So are we want to move forward with this, or? what-
well,
that's
one
what
other
she's
question that I want to clarify is, when you're talking about, this is to accommodate the current phone system.
The current phone system.
And if you, as you say, we may be switching phone systems in a year, 2 years.
2 to 3 years, I foresee us switching our phone system, yes.
And at that point in time, we'll no longer need that specified software.
Correct. We could handle it differently then.
Okay.
So the question is, in the next 2 years, are we going to have any emergencies in this building that we have to call 911 for?
Probably.
How old are you?
Lori
Just
and I
kidding.
talked about it. You know, have
Kidding,
panic
Muskie.
buttons.
There are panic buttons in some
Panic
departments.
buttons, some departments. How many people are gonna be nearby that might have a cell phone to call 911 from? Is it worth, is a life and the liability to the county worth that much money when there may be other options?
You could be looking at, say we switch our phones in 3 years. Over the course of the 3 years, you're looking at about a $25,000 bill in the end.
So maybe you put it in a line item so you're prepared in the next, you know what I'm saying? Instead of doing the one now, put a line item because she's gonna come up with 25,000 in 3 years.
Well, it'll be fixed in 3 years.
In 3 years, it will be.
Well, that's why I'm saying, is it,
Do you spend the money now and do it when how many 911 calls?
We only have less than a handful a year that happen.
okay.
It's a tough one. It really is, because it's, I would feel responsible myself if I hadn't presented this to you to help me make this decision. And something happened in one of the departments and they called 911 and we couldn't find them immediately.
This is where Jay could come in handy, because
Yeah, I guess
it'd be
that
nice
was-
to know
yeah.
what sort of liability we face.
I was looking at it wrong. I was thinking of employees, but actually we have a lot of people come and visit here, auditors and treasurer's office.
But it's
Yeah, it's the
only
public,
from
too.
our phones, from an office.
But
Phone.
if somebody drops in front of the treasurer's office, they're gonna use one of their phones to
Correct,
call.
absolutely.
I think we spend the money.
I would agree. I think that we can't afford the liability.
So are we telling her board to put it in her budget? Is that what we're saying?
In her individual budget.
I don't care where it goes, but
Just
Put it in buildings and grounds.
It simplifies
Put it in
things to
buildings
keep
and
it in
grounds,
one
yeah.
budget.
They're here, they're the next department. There you go, Laura.
I will add it into our budget for 2018. And if I can get it started this year with any money that I might have, I will definitely get it started this year. At this point, we cut our budget last year for 2017, so we're kind of running a tight budget this year. Another thing I just want to bring up to you guys, probably in about 5 years, we're going to see some change up in licensing with Microsoft. It will probably cost us a lot more upfront over the course of a lot of years. It will be a little better, but I just want you guys to be aware of that. Also, you also see us changing out some equipment here over the course of a few years. We have been saving for that, so we knew that that would be coming up.
Main thing is those higher capital costs
Yes, we
that
put
we're
money away.
aware, yep.
Yep.
And then the number two is that you just keep saying, I'm building this up, kind of like the sheriff or anybody else does for bus services and different, or buy new buses, or the highway department. That way you're not hit with the big, okay, I need 100,000 this year
Right,
for changes.
right. And we work on that every year. We decide, are we at a point where we need to switch and pull money out of that? So we've
So
been
no,
saving
no
up.
other updated areas in your department or changes?
Well, we have an employee leaving us in July, kind of sad. His wife is in the Air Force and they're going to Italy. Good for him, bad for us.
That's
Poor
cool.
guy.
We also have a software developer that's gonna be retiring in October, so. But I have all 13 of our positions filled at this point. We have 5 software developers. We're gonna be pushing one of those over to the hardware side because of our call volume, so.
So on your insurance and your retirement and all that, you have kind of thought about that when you, okay.
The tough part is one of the reasons why our amount went up for 2018, why there's such a difference there is because of insurance. We had an employee come in that needed family health insurance where the employee that they were replacing only had single. And then I also had another employee that got married, and so then they picked up their spouse. So then we have that cost that we have to incur.
And if you see big changes ever on that for the new people, it's usually because of workers changing or
Marital status.
retiring. That's when you're gonna see a lot of big changes in those areas.
Very good.
Any other questions?
Thanks, Lori.
This is Lori. You've done a great job.
Thanks.
Next is buildings and grounds. Hey, how about a 5-minute break first?
Sure, why not?
Sorry.
Well, I brought Pool and I brought Rita this morning.
Okay, we're gonna take 5.
You're gonna take 5?
Is that okay, board? Do we have a motion?
Well, Mike had something to say. What were you gonna say, Mike? You had something to say. You want to go on?
$2.
I was just gonna say, I'm going to be just kind of a viewer here today. They're running with the ball. They've worked really hard with this
Are
budget.
they all taxing as much as they can?
I want you to grill him
They
as
can
hard as
tax
you
themselves.
can.
Thank you.
County, they have.
But-
an
I think we're taking,
Take your 5.
Okay,
all in
thanks.
favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries.
Good morning, Mike Cool, Pennington County Buildings and Grounds. This will be the first time I'm before you, I guess, and regarding this subject, to talk about it, so the brains are here though, in case if there's questions to help me through things. Overall, regarding the personnel budget for Buildings and Grounds, there's a slight increase, 2.188 million under the frozen budget, and it would be 2.57 under the increase, the COLA and step increases. Operational costs are at 2.296 million, with the overall budget for the department at 4.499, or under the frozen, and 4.568 under with the staffing increases, cost of living increases and steps. I guess I would join with the other departments as well, and, requesting the commission support the increases relative to salaries, with the improving job market, and it's important that we are able to hold on to our staff.
How many employees do you have?
34, we are not requesting any additional staffing.
Okay.
Then if you look at, we also utilize the capital improvements fund. The commission allocates us $800,000 each year for that. We have projects lined out in 5-year plan relative to this ongoing capital improvement money. Last year's, you'll note, was slightly higher. That was because there was we transferred some courthouse reserve money over into that as well and utilized it, so it was used up. And then the last page that we have shows revenues. We don't have a lot of revenue. It generally comes from the public safety building in the city relative to their share of cost over with that facility. With that, I can.
Percentage of
The
structure and the evidence building also play into that.
At the and then, with the, frozen numbers, we are about a 2.4% increase over last year as well, so,
From the frozen number, right?
yep.
Any questions on buildings and grounds? The first part?
We got any major projects next year of that 800,000?
Any major projects?
That's just roof repairs and stuff like that?
We have, it's a variety of projects, ranging from roof repairs to, next year, looking at replacing a chiller, equipment, which those are big dollar items.
Get that list of projects that you're expected to do. We don't have to do it like today, but can you send it to us, Mike, of the projects that are moving forward,
Sure.
capital projects?
No? Maybe, no?
Yep.
That's not one of the new chillers, is it?
No, we have,
Those are under
how many
warranty,
chillers
I
we
think.
have, the energy
We
plant?
have 2 standard chillers, screw chillers, and then we have 2 chillers that make ice at night and
Okay.
melt that ice during the day.
Oh,
A
Mike,
couple of our standard chillers.
Mike, just, thank you.
A couple of our standard chillers are coming of age to where they've outlived their life expectancy. They're not shot by any means, but you want to replace them before they're shot because
And how old are they?
the 2 oldest are 1990 vintage, so they're pushing 25 years plus, so, with good maintenance, and that's about all you can get out of them.
Those are those courthouse ones? that you
Yeah,
showed me?
pretty
Yep.
much take care of the courthouse complex and the public safety building and the jail.
And you, sorry, go ahead,
No,
Mike.
I was just about, I understand that part now. It was the ones underneath the courthouse. I was thinking the new building, some of the stuff that you were doing over there, I had them confused.
I think Mike's got a handout he could give you as far as the projects that we're looking at. In a perfect world, if we, for that 800,000, not that one.
Not Holly can make a,
But-
if you want to do it now, you can,
I mean, the auditor's office and.
you would, Holly? Make a list
They didn't
or
request
copy.
us to give that to you, but I think it's good information for you guys to see how we have that planned. And we've actually put it together a 5-year plan to where that 800,000
Is,
is very necessary for these larger projects. As you know, we're doing another section of the JSC roof out there. And to do that whole roof at one time, it'd be 850, close to $1 million roof. So we do it in sections, and it takes about 6 years to get it completely done in $150,000 loan. So
well, and on the chillers, you have preserved those very well, Mr. Peterson, over the years to not make additional costs and have to get brand-new ones with a lot of innovative ways that you have made those work. So, thank you for that. I have seen them, and I've seen the technology and the things that you have updated without costing the county taxpayers tons of money through that, through his innovation. And I always called him Mr. MacGyver for a reason, because he does do some amazing stuff with his employees and himself to preserve and keep the
One-
costs down when he can.
one I'm very proud that we did here just this last year was the new hot water heating system for the domestic hot water for the showers and the jail. We put in really high efficiency system that not only meets the demands very well, but it's running probably a third of the cost of what our old water heating systems will cost.
Nice.
Well, I hope you do better than the one time when Raleigh Grosshands was he was gonna throw you and I in jail if we didn't get the chillers fixed that morning.
Yeah, that's why you don't want the chillers to be down. He was gonna throw commissioners in jail too. But to be able to make ice at night now and melt it during the day, you can do that you have a January 70 degrees, 75-degree day in January. It's just a couple of, turn on some pumps and we can start cooling a building. And it really comes in beneficial for the courthouse.
You save us a lot of money, Mr. Peterson, and Buildings and Grounds area with the things that you're very innovative with, and we've always appreciated that.
Well,
Nothing for you, Mike.
this,
Just kidding.
this I'm pretty sure is gonna be my last budget hearing, and with the staff that's there, these two, I mean, it's a new generation for Buildings and Grounds, and I'll be the first to say, they're smarter than I am. So, you're gonna be a good hand.
They're both very good. I've worked with Rita and Mike on a lot of projects now and just different areas with the fairgrounds and others, and they do an awesome job. Thank you, Miss Rita. You're not always in the front line here, but it's always those people behind the scenes that we know work twice as hard. No offense, boys.
I will jump right on that bandwagon, as that Rita does a tremendous, helps us out
He
tremendously.
keeps you two in line, is what I hear from the other employees, so.
I really have been sitting back and watching the department put this budget together, and it is one of the tightest budgets that we've put out in quite a few years. I think it's a good one. I think it covers what we need covered. There's not much to cut. As always, I mean, the utilities gotta get paid. You gotta keep the
On
doors
CapEx.
open, the lights on, so.
Yeah.
There's just places we can't cut. Where we can cut is the repair and maintenance, and that affects painting walls, that affects some new carpet, that affects the aesthetics of the building. But the buildings themselves have to keep running, so.
Repairs and maintenance come back to bite you too.
Yep.
Any questions, board?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
We're ahead of schedule. We're just gonna keep going till 12 or 11:30?
Well, they ain't gonna be here till 12:30.
Oh, Barry's not gonna be down.
Okay.
here. If the board wants to talk about things amongst yourselves, you can have open budget discussion now. We
Okay.
can break until 1 o'clock. It's up to the board's wishes.
So Barry's coming at 1 and then we start again. Okay.
Make a motion to recess till 1.
Second.
Whoa. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.